Hey, y'all, and welcome to Making Leader Moves. Welcome to season 2, and I am so excited to have you here with me today. Yes, season 2 does look a little different, as I, Yovana Rosales, will be your host and not your co-host moving forward. But I promise I am still here to deliver and here to slay for this season. For those of you who are new to the Making Leader Moves community, I just want to inform you that this is a podcast show that brings powerhouse Latinas together to discuss the challenges our comunidades are facing and the moves they took to prioritize joy in their vidas. Spoiler alert, but also no surprise, they usually found joy within the comunidades they built for themselves. Again, my name is Yovana, your host here at Making Leader Moves, and I just can't get enough for this season. I'm so happy of what this season has packed and what's in store for us here. So without further ado, let's get the ball rolling. On today's show, we are going to talk about how la fuerza y poder is inside of ti misma, as well as in the power of astrology. Ooh, very Walter Mercado of us. And I am here for it. We are accompanied today by none other than the postmodern oracle herself, una amiga mía bien grande, Ilona Pamplona. Yay! Ilona is a self-compassion coach who has helped dozens of women reconnect with their inner world, harness the magic of their emotions, and transform their most important relationship, the one they have with themselves. Mujer, I am here for it, and I can't wait to get into the good stuff. Her most recent work includes, and drumroll please, her first book, which comes out today, mi gente, which is also the launch of seasons 2, Making Leader Moves. Her book is called The Journal is Your Mood Ring, and I cannot wait to talk more about her journey of her new baby. And just to celebrate, I decided to bring a bottle of champs, woo, since we are celebrating launches. Hola, mi amiga, and welcome to Making Leader Moves. I am so excited to have you on the show. I know I talked a little bit about who you are and what you do, but please tell us more. How was it that you ended up where you are now? Was this where you thought you were going to be? And was this your original life path?
Oh my goodness. So first of all, thank you for the introduction and so honored to kick off season 2. That question is so loaded and so magical. Is this what I wanted to do? Probably if you asked like 10-year-old me, not. But this is exactly where I get to be based on what I understand of the world now. And what I mean by that is, when I was a young person, I used to joke to my parents, like I wanted to be famous because I loved music. I loved the telenovelas. My favorite telenovela was called Alcanzar una estrella, which
Yo
literally
nunca vi esa. I never saw that
I'm a
one.
little bit older. So it was literally, it means to catch a star, to reach a star. And it was about people trying to be singers. And, there was a point in time when I was in high school where I actually sang with like an international recording artist before he was signed onto a record label. And so I had this like dream of like being well known through like performance. And that just didn't pan out. It didn't work in that like I saw how much they focused on my physical being rather than like my desire to sing and where I can go with that. So I ended up going to college. I was a foreign language major. I studied languages. I love to talk. I speak English, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, a little bit of French, a little bit German. I dabbled in other languages. And so I spent a part of my lifetime in a career in higher education recruiting. But the whole time I was raised by a mom who's very into spiritual practices. I joke that I listened to astrology when I was in her womb because she was a Walter Mercado fan. And there was a point when I was around probably 8 years old that she actually met Walter. And I'll never forget. So she met Walter in New York. We were in New York and she met him. And she always talks about how when he met her, he's like, un poquito más y eres bruja. And so she would always be like, I'm not a witch, but my intuition is good. Walter said so. And apparently he said,
y lo que dice Walter, va. We all grew up like that. I know I did.
We stopped. Everyone stopped at 5:45 to be on Univision to make sure you hit the horoscope, all right?
We sure did.
Yeah. And so there was a point where he saw me and he said, this is an old soul. And so my mom, so like I was always raised on the story or the myth that un poquito más and my mom was bruja and I was an old soul.
Oh
So,
my
and I was pretty
goodness.
like wise. I was like an old soul kid to begin with. Um,
Okay.
but it wasn't until like so in astrology we have this thing called the Saturn return when you're around in your late 20s, right about to 30, where like all of a sudden things get a little hairy to redirect you. And I
Mm-hmm.
had a workplace abuse situation and I had forgotten the magic that my mom raised me on. And I forgot the magic in my life. And I went through some workplace abuse. I reconnected with like the magic of life and the joy of life. And I started investing in things like workshops on spirituality, like in like reconnecting to all those practices that my mom would raise me on, because my mom would raise me on things like el horóscopo if you're having a bad day or if you're confused, or like clearing out energy, like, pasando el incienso to like clear out any bad energy. And I had not been leaning into that during that workplace
Mm-hmm.
abuse. And I reconnected with magic and my life started opening up in this new way.
I love that, and I think that's very resonating. I know that that hits a chord for me. I talk about it a lot, and I remember when I was in corporate world, it's so toxic, and you don't even realize how much you're being programmed and reframed to think certain things. That I lost my intuition, or like hard. I remember, like, I have an episode with Angelique, and I talk about how, it's just you have a certain look or you have a certain sound, right? Like, you have to look a certain way, you have to sound a certain way, you have to act a certain way, and you forget all of your intuition or your gut instinct. So I would get upset when people are like, "Oh, just follow your gut," and I'm like, "Yo, like, what are you talking about? I don't have a formula for this. Like, this
Mhm.
is not part of the outline that I got
Mhm.
at. Like, this is not part of the run of show that I
Yeah.
got for my corporate assignment." And it wasn't until I started tapping into that and being like, I lost who I was. I lost a sense of identity. Let me get back into that realm. Because I, as well, my grandmother, right? No matter what she was cooking, like paraba, and we would have to listen to Walter. And she was so obsessed that when I would travel for work, she would leave me voicemails because I couldn't answer the phone. Hello, I was in meetings. And she'd be like, "Eso es lo que Walter dijo hoy. This is what Walter said," and would put put the phone on the TV.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who have the same experiences as I do. And so trying to, right, like, be part of this corporate America, but yet have my abuelita tell me, like, Walter dice que no puedes hacer esto, or Walter dice el otro. Very interesting to try to live in both worlds at the same time.
Yes. No, absolutely. Right. There's you know, being first gen or second gen, there's this like
Absolutely.
expectation that you surpass what
Mhm.
your parents did, that you become the dream of your ancestors. And somehow part of that requires like almost forgetting where your ancestors are from to create to be part of this achieved dream. But I think what was missing in the formula of the dream was we get to step into what abundance and prosperity and fulfillment looks like
Mm.
without abandoning the magic. One of the things that I always say that I feel blessed is that my father was from Colombia, my
Mhm.
mom was from Ecuador, but Colombia is like
Ooh,
where
shout
magic, I know, right? And Colombia is where like magical realism was popularized because of
Mhm.
Gabriel Garcia Marquez, the idea that like pigs could literally fly in a book that otherwise seemed very normal, right? And
Yeah.
so there is a magia, there is a magic that's part of the culture. La cultura has like
Mhm.
this belief in magic, yet somehow in order to be successful, there's this perception that gets to be relinquished to fit the paradigm of success.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, like, what you're saying reminds me, like, you have to look apart. No, you don't. Like, in that's like the missing formula of our magic, that we get to bring the magic to the spaces that we inhabit.
And I love that because that's actually how you and I connected. was through the magia of community. And
Yes.
yes, and then here at Making Leader Moves on season 2, I'm focusing on a lot of community and comunidad because a lot of, well, right, I'm a solopreneur. You as well are an entrepreneur. A lot of the women that we know, but even those that are in corporate, we feel alone a lot of the times because there's no resignation, there's no community again, right? Because we're so busy trying to fit in or break the status quo, or just trying to do the best that we can in corporate or in our entrepreneurial journeys, that we don't have the support or the groundation or the foundation that we wish we had. And so while I was searching for that, ta-da, here came you. And we met through a community, and shout out to the Mujerista, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be connected and
Oh my
find out
God.
that we're not only Ecuadorian sisters, but Libra sisters. So shout out
That's
to my
right.
Libra Ecuadorians. But the importancia of how that's been and how that has impacted both of us, not only together but also apart in our amazing journeys. And now here we are, full circle, launching our babies on the same day and ready to pop these bottles of shams.
I love it. Yeah, and it's so interesting that you bring the community piece into that, because even in that there's like such a magical sacred design for, what community and connection looks like, because ultimately there's so many people trying to be successful like in that lone wolf energy, like I got this by myself, I don't need a pack, right? But something that you said is we're both Libras. And you mentioned before Angeli of Manifest House, another community, another Libra. And part of like the Libra energy is this idea of like not having to do things alone, learning how to cooperate, learning how to do things together. And that is such a part of our design, whether it's astrology. Like for me specifically, I also have the channel of community in my chart, where it's like community is something that is part of my nature. And even if you don't have a part of your design, it's still interesting to see how we have all of the signs in us. So even if you look at your birth chart and you're like, well, I have nothing in Libra, but Libra still exists in your chart. And there's going to be a point in time where certain planets are going through Libra and you're going to feel that. In fact, it's so interesting that this season you're focusing on Libra, I mean, connection as like a focus, because by the summer, we're going to have what we call the South Node of astrology. And the South Node of astrology is like what gets to be easy, what's really easy. And we're going to have a sense of ease when it comes to Libra, which is that one who knows like how to be part of something, like not be in the lone wolf energy. So we're going to go through like an 18-month cycle during the summer, starting the summer cycle of like, hey, let's be in connection, because connection is going to be where we get to feel that ease and where it gets to flow more easily.
Oh, I love that, and I'm here for it. And I'm always down for the connection. Even like when I haven't heard from Ilona in like 5 or 6 months, I'm like, hey boo, love you. Like let's have a catch up date. And I did that, right? I did that, I want to say about 6 weeks ago with you.
Yeah.
And then you tell me, yeah, girl, I'm so sorry. I've just been really busy launching a book, or like about to launch a book. And I was like, Ilona, wait, first of all, what? Second of all, tenemos que hablar. We have to talk about this. Because this is such an amazing milestone for you, for Latinas now, right? Becoming authors, making their own imprint, and making sure that their voices are heard and seen, because there's a lot of us out here, y'all, and why not get the books that inspire us and that resonate with us, especialmente like if we grew up with certain things, right? Like the Walter Mercados in our lifetime. And so I want to talk about this book because I want to know, not like, one, how was this idea brought up, and two, I have so many questions, so let's start there.
What I can say, so first of all, this book, and I'm holding up right now, is the journal is your mood ring. It's a journal book on color and emotions and how color impacts our energy. And the way I got to this work, so even though I lead with astrology, one of the first woo-woo or spiritual or esoteric practices that I started off with was not even tarot. It was a deck I was specifically trained on called the Color Mage Color Oracle. And it really was all about like tapping into the magic of color and how it shows up in your life, and knowing that certain colors represent certain themes of life. And I would do these readings because, like, my mom was like a little, like Walter said, un poquito magia bruja. So sometimes she had a deck and she would pull things, and she wouldn't trust the messages, but I didn't like the deck. I think tarot is very medieval and very scary. So when I saw this, I'm like, this feels a line. And I started pulling these cards, and like people would cry, being like, wow, I feel so seen, or like, oh my gosh, how did you know? And I had this moment where I'm like, there's something really powerful when you understand that colors, and we had a lot of purple colors, kind of like they elicit emotion. Or they also create emotions, right? Like, or they maybe validate emotions. Like sometimes, like if you're feeling like powerful and you put on red, you feel super powerful. Sometimes, if you're feeling not peaceful, but you surround yourself in blue, you begin to enter waves of like peaceful energy. And there's a lot on color psychology, but I also think that we have our own personal attachment to colors. So this beautiful soul named Bernard Charles created this deck. And this is how I started with the woo-woo work and connecting to intuition, by the way. So after that use, this was one of the first things I invested in, the certificate to do this. And I realized the magic of like just intention. Like I can be on a Zoom call with someone halfway across the world and say, hey, we're going to pull some colors and we're going to see what this means for you and how you resonate with the messages of these things. So the project came because Bernard, who had the opportunity to play a part in this project, was like, Ilona, you get to be a part of this project. And I was so the reason I'm bringing this up is because of community and connection. Because this could have been his book. Somehow he had the moment where he wasn't prepared to write it. And because I was part of his community, he gave me the chance to be part of the birth of this, right? To be the one who birthed this specific project on how our moods can help us write our way through how we feel. So,
and sometimes that's like that alone is what makes a great leader, is not you, but like you said, you had the space to birth this part, but it was part within the community. He wasn't there for whatever reason, right? But that was a great leader, like didn't take that spotlight from you, and also aided you within your journey and was there for you to support you. We're not saying it won't be his time, but it wasn't his time right now.
And you know what? It's so beautiful when you're working in a community that co-creates. That's exactly what he expressed to me, this idea that like this is his specialty because he's the one who's like kind of the leader, or was like a leader in that for a while. And he was like, but he's like, he's like, I feel called to give this opportunity to you. And especially he said, because we need more Latinas. We need more women of color in these spaces. So I also really get to honor his vision to exalt and highlight people in these spaces, because had he not given me that opportunity, it would have been like there would have been like another non-Latina in one of these spaces, right? Because when you look at the spiritual world and the woo-woo community, I think it's only recently that we've begun to see more women of color, and more representation, because for a while it wasn't. Like in the beginning, in the advent of this new realm, it wasn't very diverse. And I have invested in teachers who were well known, and I remember thinking like, I'm literally the only Latina in this group, or I'm like 1 out of 5% of Latinas in this entire space, and thinking that I get to go bigger so that more Latinas have the possibility of saying, I deserve to take up space in this realm. Especially because a lot of this stuff is our ancestral history, right? Like this is
period. That part, I was ready. I was ready to come in with that munition, but that was it. That's what I was ready to say. Is like for me, right? Maybe not my mom, but my grandmother raised me in that kind of stuff. But then you have my mom, right, or some of my family that's very, very Catholic, and so a lot of that was shunned, or a lot of that was like, don't pay attention to your grandma, right? Or like, no le pongas atención. Like, here she goes again with her crazy shit or her crazy shenanigans. But that was her Catholicism, right? And her fear taking over
Mhm.
her. And now me and my mom are we're a work in progress. We're a work in progress. But she's a lot more accepting and a lot more receptive because of the fact that she sees, oh, it's not, oh, this is what un mal de ojo means. It doesn't mean what I thought it meant. But it was because, again, just that stripping away of who we really are. And that's
Mm,
just, all of that is who we are, like
yeah,
at the end of the day. So
yeah.
being able to have the spotlight shown on you is great, but it's also like, yeah, that's where you're meant to be because that's what you were born into.
Well, yeah, it's part of the design, it's part of our ancestry, but I also want to say it goes back to community. Like,
Mhm.
and this is why it is so important to cultivate community, because it is very different to say, I have a voice. Because I have a master's in wellness coaching with a concentration in mindfulness. I've had tons of like woo woo certifications that like, make me, you know, perceivedly established to be in this work. And yet, had I not had community, I wouldn't be able to take up these spaces. I
Mhm.
have to say, mi gente, it is very difficult to think you're going to show up in this big space alone. Now, I'm not saying that you can't. There, you
Yeah.
definitely have the possibility to create in your life what you want. But it, for me, if it wasn't for being plugged into community who saw in me what I was capable of, I wouldn't be where I am.
That
I
part.
wouldn't be where I am,
That
because
part.
Martha and me, being in the Mujerista, you saw me. I'm now a community officer in a group called the Anima Collective. They root me on like nobody's business. We that if there's like a fuel, community is a co-creative fuel.
I when I talk about leadership and community and the importance of it, I always talk about how it accelerated me in all aspects, financially, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. And you were there. You are one of these people. Me, you and I did a live talking about losing our loved ones, right? Like, that was a huge chapter in my life. That was part
Mm,
of my journey. And you and a few of the other women saw me at my worst. Like, y'all saw me in a state that I didn't even know I was in. But if it wasn't
mm,
for y'all, I wouldn't be where I am today. And it was funny because I was looking back at my journals and so much transformation happened. And I thought it happened in 3 years. No, girl, it only like really happened in like 1.5. And I was like, wait a minute. I thought this was, I mean, there was from 3, but like when the intensity was in it,
mm,
of all that change, it was like a year and a half of intense work. The other year and a half was just very like topsy turvy.
mm,
But again, like it was community that helped me walk through that path of healing. It is community that is able to get you all these different connections, right?
mhm,
And
mhm.
help you birth your different gifts and your different talents. So I commend you and applaud you for just giving community that much space, and respect in your life. And so, having said that, what made you decide to say, you know what, Ilona, it's time to share your gifts with the world?
Oh, that's like a great question. So when I was talking about that, so that Saturn return where I had like that work breakdown where it was just an abusive, toxic boss.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I actually spent, before I went into community, I spent time taking care of me and getting to know me.
Mm.
And so like I did originally, I had done these practices, these things, these workshops to take care of me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was as I got deeper into seeing people in that spiritual space and in these leadership spaces, there was a moment, I remember there was a moment where I had the curiosity of going, well, I don't want to do, I don't want to work for, there was a point, like, I think we all get to a point where like, I don't want to work for someone else. Right. But some of us, that's just not where we get to be. And there are people who love to be in a workspace, but some of us are born with like a clear distinction that we get to create something specific. And I had a moment, I'm like, I don't know what that is. I know I get to do something. I invested in this workshop, and then I invested in the following of this workshop, and I saw the person who was the leader of that space, and I had a moment where I was like, I can do that. Like, it was just like,
Mm-hmm.
because I by that time I'd spent like 2, 3, maybe more, like 4 or 5 years, really working on me, doing the meditation, getting healing my physical body, healing my mind, healing my mindset. And it was like and this is not to say you can't take the leap without healing, because I think being in the process is the healing experience. But there was just like, I've done so much healing that there was a moment that it's like, oh, watching them on stage with 100 people at a retreat, I was like, I could do this. Like I could do this. Like,
I know
why
exactly what you're talking about.
why wouldn't I do that? I think there's a moment in an entrepreneur's life where you're like, I'm totally capable of this.
Mm-hmm.
I can make this for me, and not from a competition perspective, because I also want to be very clear. It wasn't like, oh, she could do it, I can do this. It was more of like, oh, this is possible for me. It's like the expander. So I really
Mm-hmm.
want to make that distinction, because I also have my master's in coaching, and I've been part of transformational coaching perspectives. It's important to make distinctions, or sometimes things are very nuanced. So it's important to say, taking the leap when you see someone else in their greatness and you see them as like a reflection of what's capable in you, versus you see someone have what you don't have,
Mm-hmm.
strive to have what you don't have. There's a distinction. One comes from a place of not knowing what you want and just wanting what seems to be good on the other side, than
Mm-hmm.
to say, oh, because they exist and they're doing well, then that means I also can exist and do well. There's
Mm-hmm.
not a competitive spirit. That doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean we don't get to, like, be like, well, if she could do that, I could do that too. But it's a different come from, if that makes sense. And so,
No,
we get to take a look
absolutely.
at
I
that.
know exactly what you're talking about. Or it's also like you see that and you resonate with it so much, and in the back of your head you're saying, but there's so much more to say. So you're like, I want to say what like I want to share my experiences with people.
and
Because
the
I think like
perspective.
that's what happens to me. I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good topic. Love what you're saying. Let's keep going. Because I want to throw in my experience and I want to throw my perspective, and let's just get the ball rolling.
I love that you said that too, because that's the thing. Life is evolutionary, which means we keep on turning. Nothing is supposed to stay static. When things stay the same, or when we try to make something what it was in the past,
Mm,
then we actually we're not moving forward to where we belong. That's where like that feeling stuck or feeling not in the flow comes from. and
mhm,
and sometimes part of our jobs as entrepreneurs or being in communities to be like, oh yes, and this, right? And
mhm,
adding the next step, adding the next chapter to what the work
mhm,
is. Like, even like for me with the astrology, so I lead as an astrology informed life coach, and Walter was my inspiration. And I had a moment, I'm like, well, who am I to like say I want to
mm,
carry on the work that Walter started? And I'm like,
mhm,
because there was something missing. And I think there
mhm,
was also something what we missed in his message. If everyone knows his famous phrase, que reciban de mí paz, mucha paz, pero sobre todo mucho
mucho
amor. So
amor.
what was he teaching us? That through his message of astrology, we can receive the peace of mind we're looking for and the
Mm,
love that we are searching for. And I'm like, well, yeah, that makes sense to me. But did people catch on? So what gets to happen? Let's bring in the coaching distinctions that helps us take the awareness of astrology and put that peace and love through astrology into practice in our daily lives.
love that part. Working on that part. But was it something that you knew like right off the rip that you had, or was it something that because I mean, I like if I were to hear Walter say that to my mom, like, oh, and this is an also, I would be like, absolutely, sign me up, doesn't matter, let's do it, Walter is life. But was there a time like after you had that fangirl moment, right? Because I all of us would have had that fangirl moment with Walter. Was there a moment when you stepped back, analyzed it, and said, yes, I have gifts. Let me to first one, yes, I have gifts. Two, let me tune into them, because a lot of people are scared of tuning into their own gifts. And three, it's going to be my gift to share with the world.
Got it. When did I realize it was my gift? With the colors.
Right.
This tapped me into the intuition. This started giving me the confidence to say this woo-woo stuff that people don't pay attention to. And by the way, if you're not familiar with the term woo-woo, it's like what some people in pop culture refer to, the like all the things that are astrology and cards and like the magical things. So the first part I was like, oh, I have this, was when I started working with the magic of color and the cards.
Okay.
Then when I realized I have something to say, was as I got into that, I started picking up more tools. And there was a moment where I actually developed a coaching workshop that I don't use anymore, where I literally help people coach themselves through their emotion through essential oils. They wouldn't even know what the essential oil was. I would have specific intention for the oils. And like, based on people's responses, I was able to like really like directly, like I had grown military men cry being like, how do you know that? I'm like, I don't know. This is how you reacted to the forgiveness oil. Like, so this is where we get to work on for you, right? Like, or people would be like, oh, I hate the oil that represents joy. And it's like, okay, so where in your life are you missing joy? And they'd be like, how dare you? We don't have time for joy, right? And so that's when I was like, oh, I'm on to something. Because, and so the tool, so the intuition, I learned through the tools. The I am onto something came through practicing and trying things out. Mi gente, if you have an idea, if you have a hint, if you have an inkling, if you do not try it, if you are waiting for a perfect moment to figure it out, there's not going to be a perfect moment. It's not until you try it, refine the process, use your friends, like my that essential oils workshop, I use my friends as guinea pigs. In fact, the first person that I tried it on was my friend Bernard, who granted me the book and the oracle cards, right? He was like, you're onto something, because he already knew what it was like to create. And he was like, this is amazing. And so you get to try. So I tried it and I saw something that worked. And when I was at that workshop with a very well-known spiritual leader, where I had already been playing with this and seeing her, like, I went in to think, okay, I want to learn maybe how I can grow this business. But what I realized is watching her was like, I can do this. I'm going to step in and share this with the world, because if she did it, and the way she talked about her story was very similar, I'm like, we're all normal people. We're all humans, y'all. All these gurus and all these people, they're just humans. We perceive them something as more than human. And when I tell you, I've literally, and I've talked about this on other podcasts, I've manifested sitting on a plane next to Deepak Chopra. I've met Teal Swan, who was like on a documentary this summer before she was like super famous, like when she was first starting. So one of the things that I learned in this path is we're all human. They're all human. And all they did was put themselves out there and give themselves a shot. And so many of us are not shooting our shot. And so watching this other guru be on stage in front of people and figuring it out that I could do that was the moment that I said, I get to step into this next level.
I love that you say that, because I just came back from a conference a few weeks ago, and I met and I like totally fangirled her for sure. Arlen Hamilton's a shout out to Arlen. But while she was doing her panel speech, I was like, this woman is funny as hell. Like, she's brilliant. Like, let's not, obviously, right? I mean, I believe she's actually the only Black female venture capitalist, if not one of the very, 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 very few 1%. But yeah, like while I was at her, I was like, yo, like she's funny, she's witty, she laughs at her own quirky jokes. Like, what? Yes, she's also human. So I love the fact that you say that, because I totally had a Stardom fangirl moment, and then by the end, I I even she was so sweet, and I was like, yeah, this is just another human being that I met, and gratitude, grateful, writing it in my journal. But yeah, like if she can do it, why can I not do it? I'm also quirky. I also laugh at my own jokes. Like, yeah, that's more common than that.
And the difference is, are you going to take a chance on yourself? Because that's all they did. They took a chance on themselves.
I love that part. Oh, which leads me to my next question. So here on Making Lidermoves, we love to normalize being a human, and being a human comes with making let me not say mistakes, but having little hiccups or little bumps on the road. Can you give us an example of a time where you had a little hiccup or a little bump on the road, and even though that happened, you didn't let it distract you from your end game or your end goal. Because sometimes the crashes that we take from certain waves can be very, very heavy, and
Yeah.
can at times almost make us feel like, all right, like this isn't the
Like,
path,
oh,
or let me try
mhm.
to find something else, let me give
Yeah.
up. But yeah, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us.
Yeah, I think the biggest hiccup I have that I'm still working on and no longer like feels like a hiccup that holds me back is financial. I was so living in the moment with my career in higher education, making good money, but I didn't take care of my money. And so when I decided to also to take this chance on this business, my dad had unexpectedly died.
Hmm.
And that was the moment also, like, when I was like, am I going to go all in on this, or is this going to be a side like dream for the rest of my life? Watching my dad die suddenly, he still had life to live. And so I took a chance. And one of the chances I took was being older. Like I said, I'm a little bit older than some of my friends and counterparts, and being of a certain age.
Numerically, not
Yes, numerically.
spiritually,
Like,
not,
yes,
you don't look it, you don't
yeah.
look it, okay?
So I had this moment where I'm like, older, not married, no kids, no investments, and wanting this big dream and being like, "Oh, am I going to let this hold me back?" And I decided, as someone in their late 30s many years ago, to be like, I'm going to move in with my mom, quit my job, and try to make this work. And there has been hiccups. Like, it was difficult to be like someone who lived on their own and took care of their own bills. I mean, I was paying my bills up until then. Like, I wasn't like defaulting on stuff, but it was this thing of like, I didn't have enough
Hmm.
to do it in a place where I felt comfortable to do it on my own. And so I felt like it was a hiccup to be like, oh, I'm like 30 and
Hmm.
I'm going to move in with my mom at this
Yeah.
age and not have a prospect and not know if it's going to work out. And I even took out loans to work with this coach who charged me ridiculous amounts of money, and that didn't end up working. And even that, like, continue to have these financial hiccups, but there was these moments of like, but I still was creating enough to pay the basic bills, and I still was lucky to have a mother who would put a roof under my head, and
Hmm.
like, knew how to make a rice and beans enough to, like, survive the week, right? Like, she took care. I mean, we were never that. She was
Yeah.
taken care of. I wasn't, but
Yeah.
like, she showed me like there was always enough.
Yeah.
And so not having the money that I wanted to invest up front to keep me from doing the things. I feel like there are a lot of people who have this perception that these people that you see that are influencers, yes, you definitely have some influencers that are making like $10,000 for an Instagram post. But I'm going to tell you, mi gente, there are some people out there who are not as financially stable as you think, even though you think that they're very visible and stuff. And they do not let that financial part hold them back from using their voice, taking up space, and giving them their shot. Because if you believe yourself, you're going to do what it takes to make it happen, even if it means that you're not investing in that high ticket coach to get you to the networks and the places you want. But I will also tell you that if that there is an investment to be in the communities that will get you to the next space. And so I think part of the hiccups was learning who to invest in to get me to the
Mm.
places and the spaces that took me to the next level. That's what I learned. Money shouldn't hold you back. You get to learn who to invest in. And if you invested in something that didn't work, don't use it as the reason why you can't make it. Use it as a lesson of what you get to do differently next time.
So many gems were dropped in that response alone. One, I want to thank you for being fully transparent with this community, because we don't talk about it enough,
We
at
don't
all.
talk
And for you to
about
say straight up,
Bruno. I went there. I went there.
but for you to straight up say like, yo, I was in between my mid to late 30s, you get to you decide what number, pick a number. But I made the financial decision to move with my mom because I knew where I wanted to be in X amount of time. um that takes guts, that takes courage, and a lot of us would rather be like, no, 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 because of el que dirán, right? What will
Yes.
they
Oh
say?
my
What will
God.
they say? I'm in my mid to late 30s and I'm moving back with the moms, with the parentals. Que dirán? So it's this facade, it's this fake facade that no one cares about because they're not paying your bills, right? Everyone, tu tía siempre tiene cosas que decir, right? She always has mierda to talk. Tu tío también will always and forever judge your ass.
Oh my
So
God.
it doesn't, my abuelita same, like always, yo, like always. So it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, you have to take care of you. Because if you're not taking care of you, no one's gonna, you can't show, you have to show up for you because no one else is gonna show up. Like your parents can love you, right? Your tias, whatever, but they won't take care of you the way you'll take care of yourself. And so the fact that you listened to yourself, Ilona, heard the voice that was in you and said, fuck el que dirán, aka fuck what they're gonna say. I'm gonna do what I need to do for me,
Oh
beyond
yeah.
powerful. Um, can't thank you enough for sharing that, and kudos to you for giving. There's probably listeners right now that are like, bro, I've been thinking about this, and, and this might be the sign. So I appreciate that. Another thing that I will commend you for as well is saying sometimes those are the trial and errors that we have to do, is trying to find our communities, because just because you're paying for a community and even paying mega ass money for that community doesn't mean that that community is for you. Again, like I've had those experiences where I've dropped like I don't even I like 3K for a community. And then I was like, holy shit, these aren't my people. They're not showing, like, they're not really showing up for me the way I need to be showed up for. They're not supporting me the way I need to be supported. And then going to some of these leaders, which, they're like, they're on all these types of shows, right? All of them, the Good Morning Americas, the 2020s, like all of
The
these. And you
Oprahs.
go, yes, the Oprahs, and you go and you're like, not really my people. I just dropped money, not my people, right? You said I took out a loan, not my people. um but going through that journey and not letting, and that's literally you not giving up on
No.
yourself and on your dream,
Nope.
and now that you found your gente, you're like, I can't live without them.
No, oh my God. And that's what fuels me, right? Like I'm still not, I'm not in a bad position, but I'm not where I want to be financially. But
Mm-hmm.
I took a bet on myself. And that anyone listening, if you are out there and in like, because it's like in every cell of your body, if you know in every cell of your body that what is in your mind is where you want to go, and you believe that no matter what it takes you can make that happen, then you get to hear that you get to bet in on yourself. It doesn't matter the age. I didn't let age stop me.
Mm.
It doesn't matter your financial position. Doesn't matter. I was no. I feel like that. There's like that meme of like I think it's like Pride and Prejudice. Like I have no prospect. I'm 36, and like who will take me? Right? Like that. Like I've got no prospect inside. What will become of me? Who will want me? Yeah. Guess what? I want me. I want me, and I want
Boom.
the future that I can see possible for me because I can feel it in every cell of my body.
Chills. Okay, chills. But also, I'm about to, like, I'm gonna get very emotional because you know what? We don't say that enough to ourselves. And maybe I'm gonna start saying that in the mirror every morning and put it on a notepad sticky, like a sticky note. I want me. I want me. And I think that's so powerful, Ilona. And I know for a fact, like 75% of us don't say that enough to ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm gonna start today.
Because it
I
starts with
want
us.
me.
It starts with us. And this is something I want to talk about when it comes to astrology, the woo, the magic, coaching, even like religion, like it's in you, the power within yourself. You came here for a reason. You have a seed inside of you, a purpose inside of you, but it's in you. And so many of us are looking outside of ourselves for that
Mm,
answer. But the answer is in you. This is why when you're like, okay, well, how did it start? It started with me. I had to go through my healing journey. I had to understand myself. I did all the things to get to know me
mhm.
so that I can then go to the people that were the mirrors and expanders for what that path looked like so that I can be now on the path, and I'm not where I want to be, but like, I mean, not many Latinas can say they have a master's. Not many Latinas can say they have a published book with a publisher, right? Like not many Latinas can say they broke out of the ancestral pattern of lack, right?
Mm,
And so, but it had to start with me. I had to do the work. this, and this is, and I'm also going to say that this is despite, listen, you can love your family, we can love where we're from, but we also like there is no perfect culture, there is no perfect ideology, there is no perfect mindset. It is
Mhm.
what is aligned with me. And we get to
Mhm.
honor the places we're from, but break free from the limitations. Like we've talked about this. We're Ecuadorian. El Ecuatoriano es muy, I mean, Latinos in general are very much about el que dirán, but we can even say, I am proud to have these ancestral roots, and I still get to release myself from the limited mindset that some of these like cultural
Mhm.
traditions keep us from. Like, how dare you? Like, I definitely have, some relatives who are like, but she's not married and she doesn't have kids and blah, 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 and it's like, great, but like, what, like, I feel fulfilled. Is that not enough?
Mm.
And so you get to want yourself. You get to want yourself and the places you see yourself going, more than, I think, to honor our ancestors, it requires us being free from the paradigms that held them back.
Ah, so, so true. So, so true. And wanting me entails discovering me and learning me and being intuitive with myself. And that takes time, right? That takes patience. That takes learning. The patient part is the part that kills me personally. So I pray for patience a lot. Uh, but that's so true. That's so, so true. And that's a great that's a great essence, and that's a great learning, and it's something that we kind of have to just learn every day and be on a journey on every day, because it's your life. It's like literally your life's work is wanting you and choosing you. And uh I can't
And
I
this
can't get enough of that.
and this is why I work with the tools, because
Mhm.
I'm gonna drop some like academic behavior change. There was this thing in the 80s. These guys wrote this book about behavior change that I learned in my master's program, and it was like, listen, there are like these 5 steps to behavior change, but the way I saw them personally, there's some, like, it's basic. It's like we start with awareness. Who am I? Is this what I want? Is this who I am? Is this where I'm going? The second step is kind of like, oh, okay, what do I need to know? More awareness to make that happen. The third step is, am I going to take the actions to do it differently? If I'm here and I want to be here, what gets to be different? And what are the steps? Am I taking those steps? And taking the steps, my friends, mi gente, is not the final step. The final step is maintaining that. Maintenance
Mm.
is the final step of behavior change. But so these things, like the book, why did I create the book? Why do I use the cards? Why do I use astrology? Because most of us are not even aware of who we are and what we're doing. That's just
Mhm.
a step. So some people go, oh, like, so a lot of our abuelas and our mothers were stuck on astrology as the behavior change, but it wasn't the behavior change, it was the awareness. And some of them did not take the awareness that Walter was literally telling us, que reciban de mi paz y mucho amor, but then they'll be like, no, es porque tú eres Tauro que tú eres así. And they wouldn't bring the love into the awareness.
Mhm.
And it required saying, oh, we're going to shift. So I have this information. This person is a Taurus, or this person's an Aries, or this person's a Gemini, and they're gonna be like this, and I'm like this, and so I'm gonna use this information to create a new energy, new behavior based out of love.
Ah, love it.
So these are the tools. These are not the answers. These are the tools of awareness. We are the answer. These pull out the answers from us so that we can start taking the actions we get to change.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. And we obviously, right, we find ourselves within ourselves, but it also definitely takes community. We've talked about this. And so I want to ask you, how do you find your comunidades? I know we talked about how, like, sometimes you go to these big conferences, or like you enter some big ass communities and they're not what you want. So it's a learning process, right? It's learning progress. But where do you find your comunidad, or how have you found your
That
comunidades?
is so amazing. Like for me, I feel like, so I said before how in human design, which is like an offshoot of astrology and other things, I have the channel of community.
Mhm.
I've always been really good at making community. Like I've been like the kind of person that like I will find people and I'll be like, we all get together and we get to make community. So I've just been like naturally, and I think with the Libra, like I've been very good at like bringing people together and
Mhm.
forming circles. But if I found community online right now. I mean, we are in a technological age, and I know people are tired of Zoom and this stuff, but this, this world is huge. And that's the other thing I learned from my previous job in higher education. I've literally been around the world. I've been to like hundreds of cities, over 30 countries. I even created like community in education, like in different spaces. And now some of those people are coming into my spiritual community. So how do I find community? By being a Libra and being in connection, not isolating. Being like you did to me, like, hey girl, it's been a while, let's get in touch. So like being in connection leads me to the communities, whether it's the mujerista, like that. I happened to find out the mujerista because I was at a networking event for Las Comadres, which is now the Anima Collective, which now I'm their chief community officer in. But I wouldn't, but like, had I not even explored Las Comadres / Anima Club, Anima Collective, I wouldn't have met Ashley to learn about the mujerista, which led me to the Manifest House. So it's really one person, one new person in your life, or maintaining true connection with one person can open up an entire world for you. So the way I find connection, community, is by being in connection, knowing that giving my presence to another human being can open up worlds for me.
And I think to add on to that, it's giving value when you're in these connecting spaces, right? And I don't mean all the time like networking, connecting, right?
Yeah.
Because that's always like what people are kind of like misconstrued. It's like, oh, you are, and it's true, like your network is your net worth. But sometimes it's not about the career or the finance. Sometimes it's good to like find other connections, and that's how you and I were able to connect. Which, just FYI, folks, me and Ilona only met in real life once. And it literally took us 2 years to finally meet up. And like she drove like an hour and a half, 2 hours to come. Shout out, it was Ashley. We have actually Ashley on one of our episodes, the Headline in Training book. So like that was genuine connection, right? And it's like when we finally met in real life, one, we weren't strangers, and two, it was like, I can't let you go, and I hope you're okay with this.
Yeah, it was like I feel like I already know you. Now I just get to be like, oh, you're real.
Yeah, let's hold hands and never let go. that was totally my vibe when I met Ilona. It was God, it was just like, so it was magic. It was magic because screen time is amazing, but yeah, we met through, again, purposely looking for community. And then when we met and me and her had our own charla, I think it was either on like Instagram or Zoom, we did like a quick like half an hour. It was that adding value, not necessarily business wise, but healing wise, story wise, resonating wise, giving advice wise. And it's been a beautiful friendship blooming ever since. And now here we are 3 years later, launching together our different babies and our different journeys, but yet not so different because here we are on the same screen time. In time. And I love it. I am here for it. So, Ilona, having said that, tell us more about the Mood Ring Journal. Tell us where we can find it.
Yes. So the Mood Ring Journal, this is my beautiful book. It is available on Amazon. I also collaborated with One Idea Press Books, which you can find on my IG. It's the link in the bio. We've collaborated so that anyone who buys through them, the first 100 people who buy through them, will also get a mood ring with their Mood Ring Journal. So
I'm getting my mood ring.
Cool. Yeah. Kicking it old school. And this is where we were talking about not being attached to results. I think we were talking about this, or I was talking to someone earlier today about not being attached to results. Because, like, yes, I would love to say everyone buy on Amazon and make me a #1 bestseller. But for me, it's like, I'm just like, I would just be excited that people had the magic of color and emotions in their hands. And I love that I can get mood rings out to people too. So there are multiple options. And, I also love supporting, the little bookstores. I mean, the mom and pop shops, as well as the big conglomerates. The big conglomerates, we get to thank them because they make it accessible, and we get to thank the mom and pop shops because they add this little extra heart, like these little extra gifts to things. So we don't get to, there's so many ways. And other things that are coming up is that there's going to be a book launch or party on April 8th in Miami. So if anyone's in the area, definitely follow me on IG for more details. And then once this is complete, then I'm also going to be creating a whole new offer when it comes to this astrology informed life coaching. I'm launching a course, and getting people to take what Walter gave us and helping them see how they can take it to the next level.
Ilona, I am so, beyond proud, right? Beyond orgullosa to call you my friend, and just to see you grow, and just to be part of your journey, right? Like I said, it's going to be about 3 years since we've met. I can't, first of all, can't even believe it's been 3 years. It feels like it was just 2 weeks ago. Yeah. But like seeing this path for you, and I remember one of the times that we had talked, you're like, so I know it's in my journey and in my path to write a book, and I'm just going to leave it there. And seeing you already, like, right, like there was like boundaries there. And I was like, oh, like this is a great idea. Absolutely. And it was you kind of like formulating and contemplating and digesting and having all of these ideas grow, and then seeing it now and being able to pre-order it and get a mood girl. Like, how is this not like, how is this not full circle? And this is just the beginning. Like, I cannot wait to see everything else that you have on deck, and that you have lined up for us. Before we start heading out and giving our outros, is there anything else that you want to share with us here at Making Neither Moves, whether it's about astrology, community, the power within us?
Yeah. So the first thing that comes up to my mind is like the title, The Power is in You. Lean on the tools of the world, whether it's your angel numbers or finding signs or going to therapy. Use that as the opportunity to reclaim the power in you. Do not demonize your emotions. Your emotions are feedback. Your emotions, sometimes I feel like in the modern world, we have this like really negative relationship to feeling sad or wanting, like before you're like, I want to cry, right? And it's like, yeah, we've like held back some of our emotions. And that's why this is so important. Like that's why I learned the importance of color, because when you can give it something tangible, you can see it as a friend. You can see it as a friend who wants to do something. Your emotions are feedback that you get to realign, or you're in alignment. And then when it comes to community is where you can be uplifted, right? Like community is the path. It is your stepping stone, but it's not like the stepping stone where like you're stepping on someone else. It is like how it's almost, you know what, I'll almost rephrase that. Like community is the hand that pulls you up. But that as you're being lifted, you lift other people up. For me, community is co-creative. So just because you're in a community and they can give to you, your presence also gives to them. It is the uplifting, because together we do rise.
So true. So true. I know, and like, just to give a very, very quick example, I went to my first women's wellness retreat in November, and I remember dije mis verdades, I said my truth. And my voice was shaking, by the way, because it was very impactful to me, this experience that I had in my life. But the fact that I had the space to be vulnerable and share my experience with these women, one, I found out I wasn't alone, and that they had all had similar experiences to the one that I had. And two, I didn't realize how much that experience was holding me back from a lot of things that I wanted to accomplish, including professionally. And so having them walk with me through this healing process, they didn't do the work for me, but they did it with me. And all of us, I know, came out different, right? And I knew that I took so much away. Like, all of a sudden I had lists, I had strategies, I had I mean, I had it all. That even I was like taken aback by myself. But if it wasn't for a community uplifting me and giving me that space, I for sure wouldn't be where I am now. And it's only been, what, 4 months? Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I totally agree with everything that you are saying.
Thank you.
Yes, and I don't want to end the show, but
Yeah, I
unfortunately
have one
we
more
are.
thing. I wanna do
Yes,
one
yes,
more thing.
yes.
Bet on yourself.
Ah, let's add that. Let's just
Bet on
add it.
yourself. Bet on yourself.
Hmm.
And not bet on yourself and not on your fears.
Ooh, that's a big one. That's a big one. Fear holds us back a lot. I include myself in that.
Yeah.
Fear. Yep. Yep.
So that's all. I mean, I could keep on going. You and I can keep on going, but that's where I leave it. Bet on yourself, not on your fears.
So much to intake and so much to take away from this episode. Thank you so much,
Thank
mi
you, amiga.
amiga, for your time and sharing your expertise and resources on the Making Leader Moves community. We really appreciate here. We really appreciate it here. All the work that you do for us and our mental well-being. How can our líderes follow you and keep up contigo?
Awesome. Yes, hopefully by the time of this airing, my website, should be up. Podcast, maybe I'm forecasting. My website, ilonapamplona.com, but I'm also very active on Instagram at Ilona Pamplona. So those are the easiest ways to find me.
Perfect. All right, Ilona, mi amiga, thank you again for sharing tu tiempo y tu knowledge. I can't wait to manifest the next time that we meet. Hopefully sooner than later. Let's just shout it out. Let's stay in the summer.
Ooh, yes, I like it.
Yes. For all of those who have joined, thank you so much for listening. I hope you were able to receive some of the gems of knowledge that were dropped here in today's episode con Ilona. Don't forget to leave a review, 5 estrellitas por favor, and join the online community Making Leader Moves on Facebook as well as Instagram. If you have any questions on the podcast itself, please feel free to email me at makinglidermoves@gmail.com. Gracias, and once again, I will catch you on the next episodio. Abrazos, besos y cariño, familia. Ciao.